Hello, my name is music teacher Kate. In this video, we'll be expanding on the triads we've talked about by turning them in to 6th and 7th chords. I am especially excited to teach this video because when I first learned about 6th and 7th chords, I couldn't stop playing with them. I thought they were the most romantic thing I had ever heard, and I song wrote with 6th and 7th chords and only 6th and 7th chords for probably a year to follow. Let's start by finding the interval of a 7th from C. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. If we fill in our C major triad between C and 7, we see the root, 3rd, 5th, 7th. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Root, 3rd, 5th, 7th. Now let's find the 6th from C. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. If we fill in our C major triad between the root and the 6th, here we have root, 3rd, 5th, 6th. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We call this first chord C major 7 because the root note is C. Because the foundation of this chord is a C major triad, and because we've added the 7th degree of the C major scale, which is a major 7th, from our root note, C major 7. This chord is called C major 6. Because C is our root note, the foundation of this chord is the C major triad, and we've added the 6th degree of the C major scale, which is a major 6th. This chord is C major 6. So in music theory, we could add a 7th degree to all of our diatonic triads in a major scale in order to reveal the diatonic 7th chords of that same major scale. Root, 3rd, 5th, 7th. 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 There are two types of 7ths you need to take away from this video. One is the minor 7th, the other is the major 7th, and they are exactly 1/2 step apart.
Minor 2nd, major 2nd, minor 3rd, major 3rd, perfect 4th, diminished 5th, perfect 5th, minor 6th, major 6th, minor 7th, major 7th, major 7th, minor 7th.
Now it's time to break down these formulas for building different types of 7th chords, using C as our root and example, knowing that this music theory applies to any root note you start from. In the first column of this chart, we see the formula for building a major 7th chord. A major 7th chord requires that there are 3 half steps between the root and the 3rd, that there are 2 half steps between the 3rd and the 5th, that there are 3 half steps between the 5th and the 7th. An easier way to look at this may be that a C major 7 requires a major triad with a major 7 on top. In the second column of this chart, we see the formula for building a dominant 7. A dominant 7th chord requires us to have 3 half steps between the root and the 3rd, and 2 half steps between the 3rd and the 5th. Boy, this looks awfully familiar. I'm going to go ahead and say the dominant 7th chord requires a major triad But then 2 half steps between the 5th and the 7th, well, that makes it a minor 7 on top. The dominant 7th chord is a major triad with a minor 7th on top. In the 3rd column of this chart, we see the formula for building a minor 7th chord. The minor 7th chord requires 2 half steps between the root and the 3rd, 3 half steps between the 3rd and the 5th, and 2 half steps between the 5th and the 7th. So the minor 7th requires a minor triad with a minor 7 on top. This is the formula for building a minor 7th chord. When we touched briefly on the diatonic 7th chords of the C major scale, one of them was called B diminished minor 7. Well, that's because the 7th degree of a major scale is a diminished chord. So, I have to talk about the fact that that chord is diminished, but I also have to include that that chord has a minor 7 added to it. I call it B diminished minor 7. 7 diminished minor 7. This is the logic of the language, of the math, of the music. By now in the music theory series, we should know that we are looking at do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, and that we are seeing chords stacked on top of this scale on each of these different pitches. We already know that the triads, diatonic to the major scale, fall into the pattern of 1 major, 2 minor, 3 minor, 4 major, 5 major, 6 minor, 7 diminished. When we add diatonic 7th degrees to each of these triads, we come up with 1 major 7, 2 minor 7, 3 minor 7, 4 major 7, 5 dominant 7, 6 minor 7, and 7 diminished minor 7. So once you learn 7ths, it's not too hard to conceptualize 6ths. 1, 3, 5, 6. 1, 3, 5, 6. 1, 3, 5, 6. 1, 3, 5, 6. 1, 3, 5, 6. 1, 3, 5, 6. 1, 3, 5, 6. If we lay out the triads diatonic to a major scale and then we add the diatonic 6ths on each of those chords, we find the major 6 on the 1 major chord, the major 6 on the 2 minor chord, the minor 6 on the 3 minor chord, the major 6 on the 4 major chord, the major 6 on the 5 major chord, the minor 6 on the 6 minor chord, and the minor 6 on the 7 diminished chords. So in C major scale, we could call these C major 6, D minor major 6, E minor 6, F major 6, G major 6, A minor 6, B diminished minor 6. Nobody talks about the diminished minor 6 chord except for me, because if you're a rhythm player, you probably think of this as a voicing of a different chord. But that's for a different video. Naming triads, super straightforward. Naming chords with 6 added to them is not quite as straightforward. But for now, you can work with the logic of the language, of the math, of the music, and at least describe the triad you're playing plus the type of 6th that you are playing. The rest of your education on the matter will come in lesson 21 on inversions and voicings. Until then, I encourage you to just play with your triads, adding 6ths, adding 7ths, letting them swoon your sweet ear. And speaking of ears,
Be sure to listen as you play and keep track in order to learn the difference in sound between, say, a dominant 7th chord and a major 7th chord.